Podcasts Radio Network proudly presents the Broadcasters Podcast, where we dive deep into the media industry headlines and dissect the digital disruption that diverges the masses into the new media counterculture and away from the media establishment. Here is the king of podcasts.
And here we are once again with the Broadcasters Podcast. Thanks for being here. King of Podcasts here, hanging out with you. In a time right now where music is finally starting to put out some albums. We had Kendrick Lamar, Mr. Morale and the High Steppers, Harry's House from Harry Styles. We had Jack Harlow's album. What was it called? Don't forget the. What is that again? Hold on. What's the name of that album again? I already forget. Something about the kids. And I'm gonna remember what it was. I completely forgot what it is now. Come Home, the Kids Miss You. That's what it is, right? So, sure, those artists can go ahead and get some big time albums coming out for everybody to go and catch up and listen to, and get a whole lot of publicity from the record labels. But what about the rest of the music industry? What about all the other musicians that are out there trying to find their way and get noticed? And what about the radio stations? Are they doing anything at all to help serve the music community for new music discovery? I've been talking about that for a few weeks now. And in the program, we're going to talk about a couple of stories that have come up that really make a good point. We're going to talk about the return of Kevin Weatherly, who's now returning as the program director at K-Rock, KROQ, Los Angeles, which has been, for a long time, they were one of those legendary forward-thinking radio stations that were at the forefront of music discovery. When you think MTV in the early 80s, of how important they were for new music discovery and how much of an impact they made. Well, that's what TikTok is doing today. And that's what people need to realize. There's such a big difference now in the whole lexicon of music and what is being heard. And you need to realize that this is all going on now, and that TikTok has continued to make lots of music. What has happened so far is Billboard has not changed the algorithm so that the TikTok songs get them to be up there higher, or that the streaming downloads or the streaming that has been going on as a result, which would really make a bigger difference, would make all the difference in the world on where those songs are charting. Because obviously we know that there's things that are going on when BTS was able to put their songs up and immediately go to the top of the charts with sales. And just rigging the system and finding out the best way for Billboard, all based on their algorithm, to get songs up to the top of that chart. Well, right now, the most established stars are getting up there. And radio airplay has to be in play, and so does sales. And streaming has taken a bit of a back seat, which is a mistake. Streaming should take more of the of what's going on, because that's where the money's being made. That's where the artists are really being held. So the big corporate record labels, who will not really put much into what is being done with their artists, they're going to just do what they're going to do, right? And it sucks, because that shouldn't be that way. There should be more to be given to the situation, but they're not doing that at all. And that's an unfortunate thing. Because I'll tell you this. Now, Harry's House is not a bad album. He very much has like that kind of Beatles feel to it, with like a John Lennon, Paul McCartney kind of vibe when you hear his music. He definitely has that inspiration, maybe a little bit of Rolling Stones and Mick Jagger, although Mick Jagger will say he does not. The thing is that Jack Harlow's album, Ed Sheeran's last album in a way, and some other artists, their music becomes a bit disposable. When you think about the lasting power of certain music and how it's going to hold on, when I talk about lasting power, the best example in the last couple of years is Blinding Lights by The Weeknd, or Dawn FM, for that matter. Because really, there was, not so much Dawn FM, it's the other album before that really made the biggest difference, because of what everything he's doing right now. And After Hours, that's what it was. Not Dawn FM. Dawn FM was up, but still, Dawn FM's did bring out Save Your Tears, which will now be a legendary song that will always be heard on terrestrial radio, pop radio forever. That'll happen. And there's songs that, like Post Malone's going to put out 12 Karat Toothache. That album's coming out, I think, at the end of the month. And sure, he's had some songs that have been very solid. When you think about Sunflower, that song is tremendously still viral, even today. Still leading into the Spotify top 200 on a regular basis. People are still hear that song all the way across. But then you have songs like One Right Now, his collaboration with Post Malone, that hasn't really done that much. It's just kind of been there. It's not holding up as strong. Well, those kind of songs, there are fewer and fewer songs that are so solid, and more songs that are disposable singles. And then put into an album doesn't make much of a difference. Now, with Kendrick Lamar, he is the kind still putting out albums because he has like a message with what he's trying to do. That's fine. And so far, there's a lot going on that's been pretty good so far with his music. But there's other artists that will come, like some Drake. His last album, Certified Lover Boy, disposable songs. Pretty disposable. Future, with his newest album, also pretty disposable songs. You're not going to remember much after this. When I look at the songs that are coming out, let me tell you who didn't put disposable out. Future Nostalgia and Dua Lipa. That's an album you're going to hear and have so many good songs on it that will last generations. It's that kind of music we're looking for, but you have to have the right mix of various things. Remember, Levitating as a song did not make it into that Billboard Hot 100 and make that legendary run like it did if not for TikTok, if not for streaming and what they did with it and what Dua Lipa's team did with that and putting all that effort behind it. Then you look at right now Lizzo, who's been out of the limelight for a couple of years and was still very much prominent on TikTok. But you know what? Once that song comes out, Damn Good Time, and now that song's a top 10 smash, it's that TikTok challenge that helps boost it up. And what is Lizzo doing? Oh, she is talking to her fans and saying, you got to do the challenge right. You got to do the Balenciagas. You need to do your tour of the hands this way. You need to clap hard. You need to be the definitive. So she's even saying to make sure that you're doing it right. And then I saw she did some choreographed thing with a bunch of other people to do that dance as part of this. Because she knew in the song, she created a portion, a little bit of I don't know what they call that, but they gave that moment to where we had to go along and say, okay, let's go ahead and take this little 15-second part after the chorus the first time. In a minute, right? You have to do that. And that's a TikTok made viral meme. That's a little bit of snippet right there. That good 15-second vibe that you need. Just enough time to create the challenge, to get people to go in and get into it, and you're off and running. And that's what she did. And that's what others are doing as well. It's the same vein. So you can't knock everybody for doing it. It's just the plan they have so far. So we're going to talk all about that here on the program because it's very important. What is being done that radio could be doing better of, which of course they're not. You know, I can continue to bash and ridicule and cajole the terrestrial radio industry because they are the one medium that never had to falter. They should have never been affected by they should have never been destroyed or diminished their returns because of the digital disruption. They should be a complement. They should be the vessel, the gateway to new music discovery, and then Spotify, or then all these artists listen to our song on Spotify. Like, you're not going to be able to listen to the station at every hour of every day, but at least you make it where, okay, you might not get certain radio listeners to engage and get that time spent listening, that cume up that high. But at least if you can get them 15, 20 minutes, and they regularly say, you know what, I want to check into the radio and see what they're doing, see what songs they're playing. You might not get them like they used to listen to songs in the car all the time. But at least you can try. And then you do, sure, people are going to go to their playlists. That's going to be obvious. But what you can do is you can continue to try to go ahead and put a chance for certain songs to get pushed forward. You discover them. The DJs, the music directors, they should be allowed to go ahead and discover, hey, this song we learned about, this song we learned about. They should also be in the mix of helping to discover new music that will get viral. And do it through TikTok, do it through social media, so that through the radio stations, they're the arbiters of music. Their whole day is consumed of listening to music. Do they have to listen to the same music over and over? Shouldn't the music directors also be discovering new music that the record labels and other artists are trying to push to them? We know local artists are out there. You're telling me that these musicians could not use the benefit of radio airplay if given the opportunity? Because we know there is a limit of who's being allowed to be on the radio. That still happens. And we can see it because we can see how what music is being played on the radio now and what songs are allowed to be played and which ones are not. And you can look at the Billboard charts, and you can look at the algorithm, and you can look at the amount of radio airplay that boosts certain songs up to the top. And then you could realize how long those songs have been up there. Because many, almost 2 years ago, I went through the whole story of how you have songs that will be popular in streaming, and it will take 6 up to 12 weeks for a song to finally reach its peak on terrestrial radio. It's the way it's done. And so people should now realize that they can go ahead and make the changes, that we can get to a point where radio can be that. And we've talked about certain enterprise radio stations that have tried to do that, where they'll take songs that are getting trending on TikTok, but they're not making it a focus. What you need to do is you need to quit relying on the established artists and playing recurrence over and over and over again. That's what people can do on streaming services. That's what they do now. Radio needs to be the hub for new music discovery. Not even the Sirius XM does that. Maybe a little bit, but it's only when it fits their agenda. Are they actually making money off of some of these record labels? Probably payola, maybe, but it's not that much. And by the way, you're not making that much compared to your ad revenue. You need to make it where you're not taking the backhand payments of these record labels and not taking the money of the independent record labels if you're going to play that game. And then the same thing goes where you get the advertisers. You get them to be advertisers, the record labels, again. If you're not going to have record promotion, then they should pay to be on there. And then you should make that your platform is going to take monetization and properly get monetized for doing the right thing for the record labels, getting their music played. Make it worth a cost. You don't charge the listeners for it. You charge the labels for it. I don't know why that's not that hard. Why it's not, it should not be that difficult. But everybody wants to make it as such. And it's a shame that it is that way. Anyways. So there's a lot to talk about here on the show. So many stories to get into. Let me get into where I said the Daily News in Los Angeles. They talked about KROQ and Kevin Weatherly returning back to the helm. He is now once again part of 106.7 K-Rock, the legendary rock station of Los Angeles. The Rock of Los Angeles, as it was once called. That's where they are now. And I don't know what they're going to be able to do at this point to get things moving forward for themselves, right? I don't know. But at least you have somebody that comes on that is now talking about going back to the roots of what the station's about. Because they're not the leader when it comes to music or when people are going to. It's not the go-to for music now, especially the music they're playing. Because alternative has been dead. But they've always been a hub for music, especially if it's alternative, something progressive, something that's going to be changing, evolving with the times. That's what alternative or rock music is supposed to be. That's where all this music that's popular music now anyway is derived from. Rock music that was derived from rhythm and blues, which was derived from jazz, which was derived from a lot of different things. So here's what Kevin Weatherly is doing right now. They go back to his history about what put KROQ on the map in the first place. So they talk about Rick Carroll, who programmed a few stations before he arrived at KROQ. And his idea was to create a more of an irreverent top 40 radio station, or a top 40 album-oriented rock hybrid than an album rock station, to go against the likes of his former stations by playing songs before they became hits. What a novel concept. Listen to KROQ was like being part of a musical time machine where Prince or Michael Jackson or any number of punk or new wave bands would be heard on KROQ months earlier than anywhere else. And he would give his DJs a free spot on the hour to play something they liked, a move that was said to be helping groups like Depeche Mode break big on the station. This is the early 80s we're talking about. Now, Rick Carroll's system, it was working far better than anyone expected. It became the prototype of new wave radio stations everywhere, new wave music stations. He himself consulted or helped launch numerous KROQ clones in San Diego, Sacramento, San Francisco, Seattle, and Pittsburgh. And in Los Angeles, KROQ had its direct competitors of KLOS and KMET. And KMET previously was the place to find new music before K-Rock stole the new music thunder. There are many. This is an important part of the story. Keep this in mind. And pay attention, radio. Pay attention. There are many, this is probably in radio, who believe you can't play new music on the radio anymore, that it will push away listeners. And by the way, this writer here for LA Daily News, Richard Wagner, I appreciate him saying this. He writes for SoCal Radio Waves. I like what he's saying here. My take is not playing new music on the radio is why the average listener is getting older and older. Radio offers nothing to young people who shun radio for Facebook, Apple Music, Pandora, SoundCloud. I'm going to add Spotify, of course. KROQ's current ratings prove they have nothing to lose. And Kevin Weatherly, he believes, needs to recommit K-Rock to the original intent. Get jocks who love music, local jocks. Let them be part of choosing that new music. Give them the freedom to have some fun on the air while keeping it fast-paced and entertaining. And most of all, expose new music. Okay. This is the formula that every current formatted radio station should be doing today. Listen to Richard Wagner. Let me read that again. Get local jocks who love music. Let them be part of choosing that new music. Now, I talked about a couple weeks doing a national format. Then take the national format and do this. Jocks who love music, let them be part of choosing that new music. Give them the freedom to have some fun on the air while keeping it fast-paced and entertaining. And most of all, expose new music. iHeartRadio, Odyssey, Alpha Media, Town Square Media. All of you that are owners of top 40 radio stations, of urban contemporary stations, of rock or alternative stations, you need to pay attention to that message, and it needs to hit you over the head. And you need to understand that message right there. That is the only game plan that works. Now, for those salespeople out there in radio that want to worry about how are we going to make this monetize, you know what? If you can't sell that idea, you can't sell that content, you're in the wrong business. Everybody else has new content to push and promote and get advertisers for. You want to get advertisers for the same classic rock songs played over and over. You want to get people to go in and pay advertising dollars for a station that's going to play Christopher Cross's Arthur's theme over and over. Listen, it's a great song, but not everybody like me wants to hear it once in a while. And I mean, I like playing it on my playlist, but I don't want to hear it on the radio. Okay, some people might get a little tired of Phil Collins or Yes or Bruce Hornsby in the Range or Bruce Springsteen. You don't want to hear older artists they've heard over and over and again. How many places do you go where you hear the radio being played? If you were playing something new, listen, it's the same thing like, for instance, if I'm going over to mall. I went to the mall today, and I say to myself, some of the stores that have inventory in there, it's pretty clear that I look and I say to myself, all right, there's a lot of inventory in these stores, the same clothing, the same products. that never gets pushed off the shelves, and it doesn't matter how many sales you do, you need new merchandise. You need something new to get people to the door. I was watching the YouTube channel for Company Man, and he put out a story this week about what happened. Why did Forever 21 and the stores fail? It was a format where in that clothing store, they continuously have new fashions there all the time. Other clothing stores do the same thing. You change per season. And that's what you should do. Like, you can have recurrent music, but this should not be the focus. And some stations are doing it just as a focus. Some stations just say, well, we're going to play a couple new songs, but we'll play the stuff from the 2000s and the 2010s, the heyday of pop music that might still be relatable to some 20 and 30-year-olds. Do you think they want to hear that? Some sure do, but you're telling me you can't add some new music discovery in between either? You tell me you can't do that? Here's more of Richard Wagner. It doesn't mean playing new music for new music's sake, but as the online streaming services and SiriusXM's The Pulse and Hits 1 prove, there is a lot of great new music around, and much of it is never making it to traditional radio airways. This is why I took this story and brought it up. Get into the areas where high school and college-age kids and young adults hear music and find out what they like. Make it your purpose in life to break the next big act. And by the way, sure, we can all talk about smart speakers in your home, but how many young people are really using smart speakers on a regular basis? They're using their phones. They got earbuds. They got AirPods in their ears, or they're listening through headphones. Okay? And by the way, they could easily download the Radio Garden or the TuneIn Radio or the iHeartRadio or the Odyssey apps. They could easily go ahead and download those now and listen to radio stations off of there. They could easily do that. There was a time where iTunes used to have the radio service. You can also get their stations there. Get them to perform concerts for listeners. Become the must-be place for dial in the dial for new music. Make it your purpose in life to break the next big act. And you know who does that? I have said this before. BBC Radio 1. This past weekend, they had their big weekend. A big, massive concert in Coventry in England. You look at the clips on TikTok or Instagram or all their social media, and you look at the size of that damn crowd and all the people they had in concert. They had Harry Styles, but you know what they had? They had other artists that were. I don't even think I've heard too much about Florence and the Machines. There are some other artists I haven't even heard of that are there. George Ezra, like there's just some artists that BBC Radio has gone along and has discovered. When Billie Eilish was first being noticed. By the way, they make it a point to say that there's always new artists that come up, and on the rise up, BBC Radio follows along, and they are featured on various programs on BBC Radio 1, and then when they become stars, they become stars. Mimi Webb is one that's there was a song called House on Fire, and then I forget the other song that she had that didn't make it to American radio for a little bit. Didn't make a big jump, but there was some part of that. But, I mean, just the official chart alone, there's a lot of songs that come up that never get played over here. Right now, they have songs on their current chart from Leah Kate, Dylan Conrique, Lauren Spencer Smith. Lauren Spencer Smith just started getting started in America, and that's an American Idol contestant. But yet, she was getting more play in England than she was in America. That, of course, that happens. We understand that. But like I said, you're looking at all this and say to yourself, wow, what a big change there all is. Then he says, don't limit yourself to one style. Yes. Top 40 included everything. Young music fans are far more open to new styles than are adults, and adults have their own radio stations. But remember, when Billboard had to go ahead and the Hot 100 was no longer the main focus on American Top 40, and for stations, because the music started getting a little bit too risque, when you started seeing music from like 2 Live Crew making the top 40, they just said, well, we need to go ahead and do something about it. Okay, and they did, and then they homogenized and watered down the American Top 40 and the Billboard charts in 1991. It's funny like that because if you hear the American Top 40 countdown from Shadoe Stevens in that time, then all of a sudden the charts just start changing. And then remember, in the early 90s, where pop wasn't as hard as prominent, you had hip hop, you had dance, you had freestyle, you had rock, you had various types of rock, you had country come in. A lot of different music was coming in. And that was great. I mean, how much country music do we have right now that could be top 40 friendly? That does make it up there. The Billboard Hot 100 still works, and various songs make it up there. Keep the commercials down in number and make the ads relevant and entertaining listeners. Now, I was talking to Magnus Carter on his Making Money for You series at Voice America. I was on his podcast this week. And I talked about how the radio advertisements used to be all jingles. If you listen to anything that WBC or even the rock stations had, they had jingle-based commercials across the board. They used to do that all the time. What happened now? What changed? And so that you don't have advertisers that they're going to become a tune-out. You know you have to run ads, unlike the streamers, so make them good. Most of all, treat listeners with respect, earn their trust, earn their loyalty. You'll have them locked into 106.7 forever. So, this is exactly the right idea. I really appreciate Richard Wagner for writing the story here and talking about the Kevin Weatherly return to K-Rock. Because what he really did was he just took that avenue and said, Kevin Weatherly, go welcome back. And then he says, this is what needs to be done. For a station like K-Rock, nothing to lose. Trust your radio. You have nothing to lose. Do you understand me? You're not making it. Listen, you got your private equity groups that are doing what they're doing, and they're not making money on anything. I get it. But you're not helping the matters any with where things are right now. So now that we set up the discussion about new music discovery and how radio needs to play a more important part again, like they did before, they need to do it once again. And what you need to do is pay attention to what TikTok and what streaming services are doing right now. That's how you learn. That's how you change the game. That's how you get radio to come back where it should be. So with that said, there are stories that have come out about TikTok testing ground for new singles and why labels love it, and some artists and writers don't. And there's quite a bit to say in that story itself we're going to bring up right now. Billboard wrote about this. I appreciate them actually bringing it up. With labels increasingly trying out unreleased songs on the platform, producers, songwriters, and even artists saying it's bad for business because they're putting out promotional singles. Seeing if something will actually work without having to go through radio and trying to get them to gin up interest to get them to start doing something. So in the story they say that artists have previewed unreleased songs at live performances and with radio stations for decades. Well, a long time ago. But thanks to TikTok and a successful DIY social media campaign or two, Lil Nas X's Old Town Road was really the beginning of the change of new music discovery forever. Thanks to TikTok. And the practice has become de rigueur for artists, and not everyone thinks it's good business. And what started as a low-cost method for unsigned talent to casually test audience reaction and build up streaming service pre-saves to their songs, it's now the norm for even household names to break their next hit before committing to a release date on streaming platforms like Spotify and Apple Music. The Billboard Hot 100 contains ample proof of the method's success. SZA earned her first solo top 10 debut with her song I Hate You in 2021. Charlie Puth peaked at number 27 with Light Switch earlier this year. And Jack Harlow reached the number 1 spot with his song First Class. Each of those established artists teased the songs on TikTok first. Same thing with Gayle with ABCDFU, whose unlikely Hot 100 number 1 hit started as an acoustic performance video that took off online before the official singles release. So some TikTok videos can just start as a selfie video, asking fans for feedback on a newly made track. Charlie Puth did that with Light Switch. breaking down the song, kind of adding in the elements to the song and seeing what would work and what people would actually say about it. Puth walked his fans through making the song, from laying down his vocal harmonies to sampling the snap of an actual light switch. And then there's a teasing, and as a form of guerrilla marketing, where labels have been reliant increasingly on their use to choose singles and break records. The management firm Milk and Honey, and a critic of the practice and this kind of idea, is Lucas Keller. He paraphrased a major label president who told him recently that teasers are now part of their marketing strategy, a major part. And that a number of top producers need to fall in line with it, because record labels now see this as a nice, easy, cheap way to get their music out there, and they can really just do a test run and do some real audience measurement testing to see what songs, because TikTok is acting as research. They don't even need radio to do that anymore. Radio, that's how irrelevant you are. Do you understand? Now the record labels, not only have they stopped servicing you for promotion and having a radio promotion division, now they have a streaming promotion and a social media promotion division, because they're worrying about what they can get from TikTok to Spotify, from TikTok to Apple Music. That's the way it is. Radio lost its spot. They need to learn how to get back to that again and be part of the formula and not a part of, being completely out of the whole formula. You can actually be part of it and still be relevant. What does it take for radio to understand you can actually monetize, and you can get younger dollars that will stick around and continue to monetize them, because there will be long-time listeners that will listen to a station, and then you could gradually transition them from one station to another and make radio something that will complement their everyday lives. So that, remember, it's the easiest thing to turn on in your car. It's in every car. How hard is it to go ahead and have somebody get the preset up, then get the music up there, put the limited commercials, take that Richard Wagner commentary to life, and then when you put the station on, you might hear some new music. You'll stop, you'll retain, you'll discover, and maybe you'll hear something else. Maybe you'll listen and wait around for the next new song to come around while you listen to some of your favorites as well, as long as they're not being overplayed and overexposed like they always do. So there's complaints on social media from artists like FKA Twigs, Charlie XCX, Florence Welch, and Halsey, taking to Twitter on May 23rd to claim that her Capitol Records label, quote, won't give her a release date at all if she does not reach, quote, some imaginary goalpost or views of virality on her latest song on TikTok prior to official release. Now, the albums are being taken hostage by the record labels because they need to see, do we want to release it or not? Do we want to put the promotional machine behind the album or the single? They want to see if the testing ground works. And then maybe like a Halsey or Florence Welch or FKA Twigs, they don't want to do some song that has to have a dance challenge, or something that will just be goofy, that will just kind of resonate and become viral. Because we know that many songs on TikTok are very goofy or funny or entertaining. And there's quite a few that don't really have any substance to them. The song called We Not Humping right now, that's becoming very popular. And I hear that song and I'm saying to myself, everybody's kind of into it, but it's like, it's a goofy song. It's not going to be made to, there's no real, artistic, creativity behind that song. It's just kind of just a goofy playback to old school Miami bass music. And that's what they're doing with it, right? And then Capitol Music Group had a representative talk to Billboard, and they said, quote, our belief in Halsey as a singular and important artist is total and unwavering. We can't wait for the world to hear their brilliant music. So they're pshawing. They're kind of just dismissing the whole claim that Halsey put out there. That's what they're doing. Teasers and previews have become point of contention with the songwriters and producers that Keller works with, because he says they put his clients' earning potential at considerable risks. So many artists teams neglect to lock in songwriter splits and producer fees before teasing a song, leaving collaborators in a situation where their compensation is tied to the performance of the preview. If the song blows up, these creators may be able to bargain for higher fees and splits, but if the track fails to catch fire, the song won't be released. There's a lot of people that are behind what happens with a song, and who's getting the songwriting rights, who's getting the production rights, who's getting the talent right. You got to know who's going to make the cut on the music. So the songs are just not being teased when it is, especially when you're that high a level, like a Halsey or a Charlie XCX. Oh my goodness, fumbling today. Though dropping a teaser on TikTok is not perceived to be as official as releasing the song to audio streaming platforms. Let me tell you another example. Tate McRae put out her new album, and she was teasing across the board several songs that she had, teasing the songs across to get that album up there, and I'm guessing it must be doing well. I don't know if we haven't seen it yet where it's starting to chart on the Billboard Hot 100. I guess that's going to happen next week. But she was teasing songs across the board. Even some of her singles that she put out to try to get across the board and try to get something going with them. She did that. And there's a number of artists that do the same thing. Ava Max, Maybe You're the Problem. That's a song that was released, that was teased. It's hot in Europe, not in America, but maybe it might have catch some traction. But TikTok's a global thing. So there's more of what's going on with the split of what the music is going on and doing. That's the part we're talking about here. Now, the teaser campaigns have become a standard part of labels' marketing and promotional toolkits. The question remains, what can be done to protect producers and songwriters for the pitfalls of song teasing? But there aren't many answers, but there are some contemplating solutions. One source suggesting that songwriters and producers be paid a kill fee when a previewed song does not get a full release, and others said they're hesitant to ask for any change at all for fear of retribution from artists or labels. The word is that TikTok's doing such a great job of taking music and injecting it into people's lives that we all have to embrace that. TikTok is a digital disruptor, and music has no answer for this. They're just trying to take advantage of it. But these are music corporations, and they're not really looking so much at the artist's intent or the artist's goodwill, their interests, because that's what's going on. And we know that the record labels play hard and fast and loose with these artists, and it sucks. Now, there was another story that was brought up besides FK Twigs and Charlie XCX or Halsey. Another artist we haven't heard from in a while. And if I'm right, didn't he have the number one song in the country? Trevor Daniel and Falling. I'm trying to remember. How far did that song get in the Billboard chart? I just can't remember how far he got up the chart, if he did. I know it was a top 10 song. But you know what? He's falling under the same trap that's going on here with the same thing's going on with Halsey. Oh, you know what? Okay, so if I look at the airplay, the Hot 100, the song peaked at number 17. But still, 38 weeks on the chart. And that's because thanks to TikTok. Debuted 2019 of November and went all the way through June of 2020. So Rolling Stone also talked about that his label says they won't let him release music until there's enough buzz around the track. And then we just mentioned about Halsey, Florence Welch, and others feeling the same way. So this is a story that continues on. It's active. So let's talk about it. So he topped 1 billion streams on Spotify only, 3 years ago with the song Falling. He joined the ranks of Billie Eilish, Drake, Justin Bieber, Cardi B, and Ed Sheeran, and other global artists to hit the 1 billion streams on Spotify. And we haven't heard this guy from 3 years? He can credit the emo rap's track success to TikTok. Now, it was released in 2018, but 2 years later it took off, and millions began to download the video sharing app during the pandemic. And his viral jumpstart led to campaigns with Selena Gomez and Lil Mosey for remixes of Past Life. And he also got to work with Julia Michaels on Fingers Crossed. Now, he hasn't released any new music since his last EP from November of last year. That was then, despite having songs in the pipeline. And he's been posting snippets on TikTok. But he tells Rolling Stone that one of the teases it takes off on TikTok, his tracks seem destined to stay in limbo. He says, quote, It's just been pretty much impossible to put out music. It feels like I'm at the DMV. Every time I go to deliver music, it's like, oh, well, you need to do this, post on TikTok more, tease these songs so we can see which ones they react to more. I do that, and then I don't really hear anything. Because what they're really expecting, even though they say they're not, they wanted to go viral again. Yeah, they want another following, of course. He says it's just really disheartening, to be honest with you. And his label did not reply to comment right away. That's horrible. I feel like I'm at the DMV. Every time I go to deliver music, it's like, oh, well, you need to do this to post on TikTok more. I feel bad for the guy. That's horrible. For record labels, TikTok became the perfect tool to not only promote music, but it has a widespread focus group to test upcoming tracks. They only needed the song's catchiest 15 seconds to gauge how audiences might react. In April, Jack Harlow built a frenzy over his single First Class after the chorus went viral on TikTok before it dropped. And last year, it was Twerkulator by City Girls that sat on the shelf for months after the duo couldn't get clearance for sampling Africa Bambaata's 1982 classic Planet Rock. But when TikTok got a hold of a leaked version, the song began to trend. City Girls finally got the clearance from Africa Bambaata's team and the Soul Sonic Force. Snippets that resonated with listeners and trended on TikTok became a clear indicator to labels that the full track would do well upon its release. By the way, now I got onto TikTok, I think March 2020, and I must say, I've been talking about this since then on this program multiple times. Hell, I've dedicated episodes to talking about TikTok and the importance it's had towards the music industry. And back then I said, beware music industry, beware radio, TikTok becoming the new music discovery. Not only that, remember when there's certain songs that come back all of a sudden and become important again, let's remember. Okay, there's songs right now that are getting viral as a result of TikTok. I'm thinking right now of, well, there was Fleetwood Mac's Dreams, and the entire Fleetwood Mac library being listened to again, and the Fleetwood Mac Dreams song being charted again, I think in the top 40 on the Billboard Hot 100. And that is 35 years after the song was put on the chart. And then you think about, I'm thinking right now, Engelbert Humperdinck's A Man Without Love. That song right now, for whatever reason, that's gone viral. Okay, there's El Gran Combo, the salsa act playing Brujeria. That song, also viral, among other things. And it goes across the board. It's amazing like that. So we move along here, and we talk about Halsey. We already mentioned her part. That's parts in the story as well. And they say that Halsey's transparency about their frustrations was a relief to smaller independent artists who feel crushed by the newfound focus labels are putting on TikTok. A singer-songwriter Kaylee Morg says, quote, it's definitely a privileged problem to have. But if it is happening at that level where those artists technically need to earn their releases, that is trickling down to people that are at the bottom of the totem pole. And then Bronze Avery, who won Billboard's first ever NXT competition, says it's been a dominating conversation among musicians recently. All independent artists here is, quote, put your songs on TikTok, do the snippets, do this over and over, and one day you'll be big like Halsey. But then he says, but if Halsey has to do it too, then what's really the goal, and is that cycle ever going to break? And Trevor Daniel actually says it's kind of wild. I feel like it's been going on for a while, but when Halsey posted what they did, it really helped me feel like I could speak out because it's helpful to know it's not just me. In March, Florence Welch let out a sigh before launching into an a cappella version of My Love, explaining in her caption that her label wanted her to post more lo-fi videos. And even artists who thrive on the platform have made lighthearted references to being forced to post content. Doja Cat's a great example. She teased the collaboration with Taco Bell with a tongue-in-cheek gripe about the partnership. Quote, I gotta do this fucking TikTok. They want me to rap about Mexican pizza. So I just want to give you a heads up before you see that shit. It's contractual. Shh, I know it's bad. Artists now are even lampooning the phenomenon, with Charlie XCX joking that she was lying for fun after claiming her label asked her to make 8 TikToks a week. And regardless if the complaints are legitimate exasperation or clever reverse psychology, marketing tactics, it's clear that musicians are being asked to do more heavy lifting than ever when it comes to their own promotion. But the underlying issue is that isn't the asking the creating of content for TikTok, but the repercussions that come when artists' promotional content fails to hit an impossibly high target. They just think that every song is going to be viral. And this is the record labels holding over their heads. Because also, it's the albums that are out. It's not a timeline. It's the fact that, okay, so you have to wait for a song to get viral, and then we can get the album released. And they can hold an artist to contract if they want. And they can also do the same thing where they say, well, after a certain amount of time, we're not going to put out this album. They're holding hostage these artists. That's horrible. And radio, getting back to them, they could be the arbiters here. They could mediate here. They could offer another place for artists to play their music new. Have them perform live at a concert, whatever there is. Like, what happened to all that? I still remember when I was working at Clear Channel, before it's called iHeartMedia, I didn't get to meet her, but I remember when Katy Perry was first jumping on the spot. Before I Kissed the Girl became a hit, I remember she came to the studio. She was nobody. She was just this pretty girl, brunette, all dolled up and likable. And then all of a sudden, let's go do something at a concert here. Let's go and have you perform. Do this in front of a stage or whatever. And radio, because the label put her on a press tour to go around the radio stations to promote herself on the upcoming album or her single. And then she became the multi-platinum star that she is today. She might not be doing as much at this point, but she's still putting out records and she's still getting them somewhat charted in Europe at least. And she can still put out albums if she wants to and still get some traction and people will still pay attention because she's on American Idol. But radio did that for Taylor Swift. Radio did that for, first of all, Justin Bieber was through YouTube, and then he made his way up. When radio does get behind somebody, all of a sudden the changes come across. I remember when Post Malone was just Congratulations was a song, and all of a sudden he starts getting a couple songs, Circles, Too Good for Goodbyes, all those songs that were coming up, and Post Malone is going for the radio, and Billie Eilish was not even noticed for years. But when radio got behind it, then you just legitimize, and radio could do that now. They have the power. They could be coming in here and helping these artists. And they could be working with the record labels again. Okay? Then you could test music going on. You know what was one of the best things we used to have back in the day? When you used to have a war where you would have a call-in. And usually around 9, 10 o'clock at night. Over here we used to have Power Wars or Exeter Respect that I remember used to be on X102.3. And then you would have it where you'd have some song that's the current champion, some new trending song, and then another song would go up as a challenger. And you'd have all these people calling in, voting for which song would be staying the challenger, would be the champion, stay the champion, or a new champion would be crowned. And a lot of new songs broke that way. And that could still be done now. Remember, there was a thing where radio, a lot of songs, all of a sudden, this one radio station started playing it, and then it got viral. It doesn't have to be through TikTok. TikTok is a large platform with a big audience. And the level of virality that you're looking for there, global. Like, what kind of numbers do you need to make that go? And then you're holding these artists from putting out new content. We should not be waiting. I mean, Halsey had a baby, so that's, one thing. But when you look at Charlie XCX, like the level of where her songs could be really pushed, especially in America. Like how she's not played more. She's a great artist. And she's always put this very different version of pop, a very significant progressive style of pop. And even now this last album she put was very much pop-like and a little bit different from her normal run, but still great stuff. And she, because of the certain songs, did not get the push out there for whatever reason it was. That's a shame. So it's no surprise that labels are shifting their focus to TikTok, considering a song could go viral even before it's released, effectively guaranteeing a return on a label's investment. And Rolling Stone talked to Jesse Callahan, founder of social media marketing firm Monfort Agency. He says that what labels tend to overlook is just how unrealistic it is to expect an artist to be able to go viral with every single song, even more so if that determines what gets released. Quote, "It's not easy to put out viral content, to understand trends, to interact with your followers. That's just a lot of talent to do that. There's just so much work and expectation the label puts on you, away from just producing and writing music, to just say that this artist needs to be perfectly well-rounded to create viral social media content. That's a big ask on top of all the other stress they have with touring, producing music, and trying to have some personal life. And also offers another method for a label to save a few bucks. Teases the songs that fail to prove they will do well, so they don't have to do a video in front of it. They don't have to put out lyric videos. They don't have to do the extra social media promotion, trying to get clicks, trying to get views, trying to get downloads. It's a big ask on top of the other stress. And the teases save the labels the cost of traditional promotion efforts when it comes to releases. And when it comes to stiffing songwriters and producers in the process who lose out on when a song is leaked and doesn't go anywhere. They talk to other stars here in the same way. Singer-songwriter Sizzy Rocket's written songs for Noah Cyrus, Hey Violet, and Time Flies. Spent nearly 10 years with Universal Music Group under a publishing contract until she left this March and formed her own record label. Got fed up. She says, quote, "Every major label has called to me and be like, oh, come write for my viral artists for free, because the industry standard is that the songwriters don't get paid for the session." Her songs could go on to be recorded, but if more labels require a song to trend but even before it's released, how long does that mean she'll have to go without being paid? She says to be exploited, quote, by these labels and have someone who has no idea what it's like to even make a TikTok. They don't know what it's like to really sit there and have to make these videos, end quote. Unlike Twitter and Instagram, TikTok content can take much longer to create and require users to be much more hyper engaged with the app to jump on trends, because they tell you you got to post 3 times a day. They also have to post content that's not solely about their music. And Rolling Stone was told by several artists that their most popular posts have nothing to do with their latest song. And they talked to a bunch of other people in here in the same way. And they also said that some artists say it could be easy to toy with the idea of caving in, creating a song they might think would be better suited to TikTok, just to get themselves out of a rut or to appease a label. But it creates a potential problem of genres slowly melting away until everything sounds like a TikTok song. That's another point as well. Because what songs are worthy and viable? I mean, if we have something that's pop punk, if we have something that's rock or hip hop or whatever, or pop, it can't just be pop songs that it doesn't need to fit a certain formula. Listen, Eurovision just happened 2 weeks ago. And Eurovision, if you want to win that competition, whichever country you are, you have to follow a certain formula on how a pop song is made. A certain structure, a certain, tone, a certain feel to it. It's got to be like a certain formula that usually wins Eurovision. And TikTok's being the same thing, because everybody expects something to be done with a TikTok song. It will have to be upbeat. It doesn't have to be solemn or, a ballad. It can't be that either. Things like that. And all these artists that Rolling Stone spoke with agree that TikTok is a powerful tool, especially for smaller and independent musicians. But it's unsustainable and unfair to solely rely on a social media app to determine what songs get released, or who gets signed simply based on if they have enough followers to make songs go viral. And so much here to be understood. And to recognize the level of effort that has to be done. I mean, it's a shame the record labels are at this point now, more than ever. It's a shame. And it's not fair to them at all. I'm going to take one other music story, because there's a bunch of other stories I have in the mix, which I'm not going to get to tonight because I want to keep it to an hour. So I will just give you a taste of what's going to be going on next week. There's a story that came out from the law firm of Holland and Knight talking about the The Department of Justice and the Federal Trade Commission Antitrust Division had a meeting where they focused on the media and entertainment industry and the consolidation of said industry. We'll talk about that next week on the program. Now, it's about a month or so that this came out, but I want to bring it up because we never got to talk about this. But I think it's important to bring up. Then there's also Jeff Sagansky, which I don't know exactly his role is, but he was at the National Association of Television Program Executives. Now, Jeff Sagansky is the former chairman and CEO of Platinum Eagle Acquisition Company. He's a very, very, very big Hollywood executive. And he talks to the NatBeat folks about the streaming-driven TV business model that, quote, we are in a golden age of content production and the dark age of creative profit sharing. He really bashes the industry on how streaming is being done and how it's hurting all areas of content. So we'll talk about that. And then CNN and their new, the new head of the channel is cutting back on overhyping everything as breaking news. Now, I'm curious what they're going to say about that. We'll talk about that next week on the program. One other story I want to bring up is, which is really wonderful, and I talked about this a few months ago as well, the pop-punk renaissance. When you have the likes of Willow, Olivia Rodrigo, like I said, Leah K has a song out, 10 Things I Hate About You. You got Tim McRae that's doing She's All I Wanna Be. These songs are all... Plus, you got MGK out there putting out music, and they're all kind of giving this pop-punk renaissance a new life, which is wonderful. Rolling Stone talked about that. In 2022, pop-punk is back for the dead, more popular and influential than ever. Suddenly, it's the teenager of the year. It's a massive resurgence for the music style that's always fetishized the ideal of permanent adolescence, turning a bratty sneer into a way of life. But now pop-punk is downright respectable. And you go back and think about who really carried that kind of music across the board. You think of Blink-182. You think of Avril Lavigne. Avril Lavigne making her way back into the scene. You can thank Travis Barker ascending to the showbiz throne of America's drummer. Right now, Olivia Rodrigo is doing her Sour tour, and she's even covering Avril Lavigne's Complicated on her debut tour, A True Passing of the Torch. And that pop punk has evolved into a ubiquitous music language, especially as female audiences and performers have claimed this voice as their own. No other pop noise does a perfect job of snarling the timeless question, where's my fucking teenage dream? There's Paramore inspiring a whole generation. Willow teaming with Travis and Avril to vent her own teen angst. Olivia scoring an instant classic and a number one hit with Good For You. A sociopath bashing rager that could pass for Paramore. X-Ray Specs, the Buzzcocks, Fastbacks, or countless other beloved bands. I feel like I've read this before, but it's true. They're kind of going with the right point. Scene moms all over America are raiding their closets for this Fall When We Were Young festival with a slew of pop, punk, and emo legends, a festival that would be unthinkable just a couple of years ago. That's what we're at right now. And everything going on where you're just feeling this, the rock renaissance is back. Even Måneskin just put out a new song trying to work themselves back up after their legendary run last year with songs like Beggin' and I Want to Be Your Slave, which were so catchy last year. I want to see what happens more with this kind of music, and just know that we have to have music that's going to be diverse, that's going to be variety. Like the 90s, we could talk about all we want. And listen, they might be a little bit dated, but we had so much types of music before. Like dance never gets put over here. You think about all these artists that are overseas that could be played over here in the States. You think about Tame Impala or The Strokes, or, you know, there's just so much music out there that doesn't get played in America. And the record labels and the radio companies are not doing any justice at all for any of these people. The artists are being suffocated. They're being handicapped. They're not allowed to go ahead and ply their trade and put out new music. This is why we had such a light point of music coming out and such a lack of albums coming out at the start of the year. And then a lack of singles. Think about that. We haven't had that much new music coming out that really resonated and made it up the charts. And then who gets to control that? The major artists. The Ed Sheerans of the world, the Justin Biebers. Those are the ones that get up here. Otherwise, Harry Styles puts a new album, he can be all over the place. Jack Harlow, he's already made a name for himself. Megan Thee Stallion, Imagine Dragons already been names for themselves. Doja Cat, Lil Nas X. And there are others that are out there, but all of a sudden, you see what's coming up. Radio doesn't want to play the TikTok songs. I mean, Numb Little Bug is now as a top 10 song in America, but it took a long time for that. But, you know, she's also under the Republic label. So eventually, someone was going to get to that song and they were going to get somewhere with it. That's what's going on. And just believe that. J.N.R. Choi, To the Moon, that with Sam Tompkins, that's a TikTok song. But it doesn't get that much traction. There's so many other songs they'd rather be playing instead. And that's what they're doing. It really sucks that way. Lauren Spencer Smith towards the bottom of the list right now with a couple of songs that have gotten really a lot of virality. You look at Leah Case, 10 Things I Hate About You. That's in the bottom of the 30 on the chart, in the media-based charts this week. And I just keep looking at it and say, man, they just don't want to pay attention. There's so many off and odd songs that don't even get played, by the way, by radio stations because they won't play it. They might be in the media-based list, but remember, I'm looking right now at the list. The top 30 songs are getting quite a bit of play across the board. But when you go past that top 30 and you go down to the 50, it's minuscule. It's nothing. It's as if they're saying that there's a very light load of music available for people to play. New music in rotation, that's why they have to be so reliant upon recurrent music or gold records. No, it's not. Because you're not willing to play new music. You're allowing TikTok to do it. You're allowing Spotify and Apple and Pandora to handle that. And so the record labels are going to go for the cheaper route. When they should be going for the route that works best, they should be multi-pipelined, working with social media, working with the likes of TikTok, working with radio. How many times do I have to come back in front of this mic and keep talking about this? Well, I'm going to tell you one thing. I'm not going to stop talking about it. I'm going to keep thumping on this bully pulpit every week if I have to until there's a change. Because that's one of the first things I wanted to do with this program. I wanted to be able to talk about radio, and I want to talk about music, and I want it to be better. Like, sure, listen, I'm content with listening to my Spotify playlist. That's great. But, man, I would love if the radio got involved in this again. I'm giving you ideas every week. What else can I do? Why don't any of you radio officials, why don't you come on the show? Why don't you talk to me? Talk me down off this cliff here and tell me that I'm wrong. Put me in my place. I ask you to do that. I will give you a wonderful forearm. I know you're not going to take it, but I'm willing to offer it to you. I'm not afraid. I'm not afraid at all. So think about it. Email me, kingofpodcasts@yahoo.com. If not, go to kingofpodcasts.com. You can hit me up there. Or find me anywhere on social media. I have the same name, King of Podcasts with an S. Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok. And LinkedIn, by the way, as well. Okay, I'm going to leave it there. Thanks for listening in. Come back for another Broadcasters Podcast next week. And until then, remember that content is king. All you musicians, you know it as well. And the control of your content is in your hands.
Thank you for listening to the Broadcasters Podcast. Find all the links to subscribe to the show by going to broadcasterspodcast.com. And don't forget to check out the King of Podcasts wrestling program, the Wrestling is Real podcast, exclusively at wrestlingisreal.com.